Hi everyone, Jill from the Northwoods. How are you? I hope your journey with weight loss, or whatever it is you're trying to do, is going very well for you. And let me just turn on the comments so I can see if you say anything. But essentially, been a good week. I said that I thought I had actually gained 2 pounds. Well, then the 2 pounds came off. And it's been confusing. Like I said, my weight has been all over the place for the last, ever since I went down in dose. I went from 12.5 to 10.0, and my like I said, my weight's just been everywhere. So I started investigating this. I've been watching a lot. I've been reading a couple of books about how I can maintain weight now that I'm trying to get off of GLP-1s entirely. I'm gonna go against the flow and try to see if I can't get myself off of the drug. But like I said, I'm not doing this, I guess, in a religious way. If I end up having to stay on it, I stay on it. But my hope is that I can get off of it eventually. So I started going down in dose in mid-November, and I think we're like on month 3 for going down in dose. And like I said, it's been really good, and I haven't gone wild. I went grocery shopping this morning and I bought reasonable food. I didn't buy anything that was fancy or anything like that. And I thought, okay, we're doing okay. In the whole scheme of things, I'm not losing weight right now, but that's okay because I decided I'm going to take a year off. If I decide to wait that long, maybe I'll get antsy in the summertime, but not have weight loss as part of my goal. My grocery shopping is good. My eating is still good. I am still doing the things I'm doing. The biggest struggle I have right now is on exercise. So I go to the trainer three times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and we do strength training. And then I mean to do cardio, which I am doing Tabatas. That's what I've been doing recently. And if you don't know, Tabatas are where you do high interval training. So maybe for 20 seconds, you go all out on something. You're on elliptical, you're on a treadmill, you're on a rower, or you're doing something that gets you cardio. All out, 20 seconds, and then 10 seconds active rest. So doing what you've just been doing, but just at a slower pace so you can catch your breath. And you do that for 4 minutes. I think it goes out to 4 minutes, 8 minutes. But anyway, I've been doing those, and I think it's one of the easiest ways or the fastest ways to get your cardio up to par. So right now my muscles are good. My cardio is lacking. I'm telling you, I have a hard time doing that. I am still the physically lazy person I've always been, where it's hard for me to get out of this chair. All my things, I got books, I got computers, I got knitting, sitting things. I just love sitting. And, you get under the blankie and it's, minus 13 outside. It is hard, to do for in the wintertime. So that's been my biggest struggle so far. But that's been the biggest problem. So I thought I'd talk about some of the tips that I have done, both when it comes to eating and when it comes to exercise, to do it. Because I think, like I said last time, you have to fight whatever battle it is that you're having. And right now, this is my biggest battle, is getting myself out of this chair. So that's primarily what I'm doing. If you, so like I said, still the same weight that I was. And so we're doing all right. Like I said, I dropped those 2 pounds. You have to, I guess, when thinking about this, is understand what battle it is you're fighting. Every one of us is going to fight a different battle as we go through our GLP-1 experiences, when we're losing weight, when we're stalling in weight, and when we decide to go into maintenance mode. We're all going to go through some struggles. And so you have to identify what it is. And so I thought I'd refer back to, what is it again that GLP-1 does for us? How does it help us lose weight? In the end, it improves insulin sensitivity. And when we have too much insulin in our bodies, it keeps us storing fat and not losing fat. Because that's what the insulin's one job is, to say, take that sugar and store it into fat. And then protect that fat. Don't bring it back out again, because I might need it someday. And I love anthropomorphizing things. So anyway, sorry about that. But that's it. And so by giving us better insulin sensitivity, we don't put things into fat storage as much. We're able to use the sugars we have in our system, whether it's fat or whether it's floating around. We have a steadier access to the energy that fat is to perform for us. And with long-term weight struggles, a lot of times you get stuck into a point where it's not even overeating anymore. It's too much insulin. We get too much insulin in our bodies, and thank you for that. I appreciate it. We get too much insulin in our bodies, and they're starting to come around with this idea. Glucose is very easy to measure. I have a little jabber thing that I, spent $50 on Amazon, and it gave me 500 tests, and I test my insulin or my sugar all the time. Easy. Insulin's not as easy to test. And what a lot of doctors you hear about on the internet talking about is that many people, more than know about it, have an insulin problem right now and not a glucose problem. So my other friend who is taking GLP-1, she has perfect glucose all the time. She's never gotten extremely overweight, and her sugar, blood sugar labs, and all her labs are great. And I said, I have to believe that you must have an insulin problem, because she could not lose weight. No matter if she would starve herself, if she would do all the right things, she couldn't lose weight. And GLP-1s help us reverse that pattern. So that is the number one idea from it, is that the signals get all scrambled up, and we stop losing that ability to lose it. So that's one way GLP-1s help us. Slow stomach emptying, you probably heard that. So it kind of keeps us in that after Thanksgiving meal state all the time, where there's always food processing in our stomachs. We make GLP-1s naturally, and the doctors that were researching it said it lasts from 3 to 5 minutes in our body. So right now we're giving ourselves a dose of a drug and having it in our system all week long, when it really only stays in our body naturally for 3 to 5 minutes. So we empty our stomach more slowly, and that means we feel full. We feel full for a longer period of time, and basically we can't eat as much. Our portions shrink. We just can't. The mechanics. Now it's talking about the mechanics, right? So that's why also some people feel nauseous early on. The stomach is feeling full all the time. And the third way that GLP-1s help us is it reduces the hunger signals in our brain, in the hypothalamus, which is interesting because they said that they used to believe they understood GLP-1s, that the GLP-1s worked here, and now they're finding it in intestines, they're finding it in the brain, they're finding it all over the place, that they had no idea that GLP-1s were there. And so that means you're getting less what they call the food noise, the background hunger. You're getting less hunger spikes, where you feel really, really hungry. And there's less urgency to eat whenever you're standing there around food in general. So that's the next way that GLP-1s help. So maybe you still feel hungry, but it's much more quiet and it's much less. And so that also helps us stay on target. And the fourth way that it helps us lose weight is food ahedonia. Now, ahedonia means that you don't get joy from something. Believe it or not, and me and my friend Allison out there, she was in an article that talked about it. We have music ahedonia, which means that when you see people who love music, you ever see that where people are just jamming to music and you could just tell they love it, and you think, and I think, oh my gosh, I do not feel that way about music. It's fine, but I have music ahedonia. But food ahedonia means that instead of us before getting like, ooh, I want a cake, or I want this, or I want that, the highly what they call palatable foods, you know what? It doesn't provide as much joy. It stops calling your name. It loses the emotional appeal that you have. And you can have some, like I noticed that in the summertime when I had ice cream, I had a little ice cream, and then I was like, I think I'm done with this. And I would, freeze the rest and maybe eat it later, or maybe forget about it. I would just even outright forget about food. So that reward loop is gone. And that's important, and so the important thing is that this is, I think, why they think it also could possibly lead to depression, that some people have experienced numbness or depression, and if you do have that, talk to your doctor about that. Not a doctor, but talk to your doctor about that. Some people have said, who are married to people who are on GLP-1s, gosh, you used to love this and that, and now you just don't anymore. And it's because it affects the pleasure centers or the dopamine centers of the brain. And, you might lose a luster, of some things that you used to have. Like I said, I used to be excited about Diet Coke. I would sit in bed when I got up in the morning and thought, oh man, I'm going to have a Diet Coke. That sounds so good. It would actually like literally be the thing that calls me out of bed. And now I don't anymore. So that whatever controls that's gone too, right? So someone said that you still enjoy food, but it stops bossing you around. And then the fifth way that GLP-1s help is it reduces cravings, particularly when it comes to sugar and like what they call highly processed foods, because the dopamine signaling basically tamps down. So there's less chasing cravings. So even if you had cravings, you just don't chase them as much, sugar seeking, that kind of thing. Because dopamine is... You get dopamine hits when you do a thing, like they talk about it. It's really weird. Like if you're addicted to gambling, dopamine is pulling the lever on the slot machine, but it's not actually winning. When it's eating, it's getting the thing that you really wanted to eat, not necessarily the eating of it. And so it's a very fascinating drug. But so that leads to less impulsive active. That's the thing that I think affected me because I'm ADHD and I had a lot of impulsive eating. Now that I've been away from the impulsive eating for a year, I recognize it. Now I'm like, okay, I see what I was doing back then. And now I'm not doing that. And I don't know if that comes back as I go down on the drug, or now I have learned how my brain works enough that it won't. But less reward eating, that kind of thing. That also means like less addictions, less alcohol seeking. Oprah just talked about that, about how she used to put away 17 shots in a night or something like that. And now she doesn't do that anymore. And essentially what this drug does in the last step is it helps, like I said, by lowering the insulin and stabilizing the glucose, the body now can use what is called glycogen properly, and then tap into the stored fat you've already stored and pull it out of your system. So even without reducing calories, the body is trying to defend your fat. Like I said, our methods of eating have helped the human race survive all the way up to like 50 years ago. Famine, feast, good times, bad times. Our body fat would be there, in case it wasn't a great, harvest year, cold year, we didn't get enough harvest in, that kind of thing. And now it's not helping us anymore because now we have plenty of food in this country available to us at all times. And so now our body is still trying to defend fat in case something really terrible happens and we don't need it to be defended anymore. So this now allows us to access the fat and pull it out of the system. And then the last way GLP-1s help is reducing inflammation in general. Now, I had really bad inflammation issues, and I'm starting to, now that I look back at them, think that it had a lot to do with insulin. There's all sorts of ways. It was kind of funny. This doctor was talking on the air. She says, I can look at someone and tell them if they have insulin problems. And she talked about like these like little fat cells, blobs around the eyes. Talked about like skin tags. And she says, there was all sorts of things that she mentioned, and I had every single one of them. And now I don't. They all shrunk back down. And so that was kind of interesting. But that is chronic inflammation in the body. And that has to do with our hormone signaling. That has to do with how we regulate our energy, and that is also how we metabolize our fat. And because GLP-1s have an anti-inflammatory effect on us, it improves what they call metabolic flexibility, meaning the body can say, oh, now we're storing, now we're using, now we're storing. Before it was like store, 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 because it thinks you're in a crisis of some kind, which also then helps reduce fatigue. It came out to me on a skin allergy I was having, and that's gone now. I struggled for a decade with this terrible skin allergy. I touch things and my hands would burn. I could literally feel them burn. That doesn't happen to me anymore. I was having inflammation problems. And so that makes it so that we generally feel better, but the body reacts in certain ways when you're doing it. And then essentially, in the end, all these things come together and allow us to eat less calories and not feel deprived, not feel panicky. The body doesn't panic about it, and the metabolism doesn't slow down the way it used to with dieting. Okay, so I wanted to set the stage. These are all the ways that GLP-1 helps us to lose weight. The problem is that when we come off of GLP-1s, there's a really a couple of good doctors out there. There was Dr. Berkman, who does a lot of metabolic research. There's another fellow, I'm trying to think of his name offhand, but he does research looking at how these systems actually work. And the interesting point is he said that you have to realize in the whole history of mankind, if you lost 80 pounds in a year, you're dying, right? The body normally does not do that unless you're very sick, unless there's a famine. The body is not going to lose 80 pounds. And it doesn't want to lose 80 pounds because it thinks, what happens if there's a famine? I better protect this fat. So you come off of GLP-1s, or you decide you're not going to lose weight anymore. The body is he basically said freaking out. The body is freaking out. It doesn't know what to do with itself. So it is going to try to do everything it can to put that fat back on because it thinks that something's really wrong. And what if we have a famine and I have to protect the body? I have to keep Jill alive. And he sort of hinted at the fact that it's going to take a year or two before the body finally stops freaking out. He also did mention the optic nerve thing because they got into that about the optic nerve and saying when you drop glucose in a rush, I was 3 days into me taking GLP-1s, I was no longer diabetic. 3 days. I went from high sugar to being perfectly fine sugar, and now I'm kind of low sugar at this moment. And the optic nerve and systems in your body are sensitive to glucose, really sensitive to what it is. And he said, essentially, parts of your body just spasm when it doesn't get the sugar it thinks it's supposed to get. It got used to the new normal, and the new normal was too much sugar, and then suddenly it was low. And now the eyes are kind of spasming. He says it is honestly going to take your body a year or two before it stops freaking out. And his whole idea behind all of this is he says that GLP-1s are so amazing at taking care of glycogen, that's going to be the sugar that's stored in the liver, and getting it out of our system. That it's so good at it that, when immediately if you were to stop taking GLP-1s, which I'm not doing at this moment, you're going to put on glycogen weight. You're going to put in, and as you get more carbohydrates and things in your system, you're going to put in water weight too, because water goes with glycogen. And it is immediately going to rebound and you are going to gain some weight just because of the pure mechanics of it all. And when I started, I'm going to do an episode coming up in a couple of weeks about AI and what I'm using it to do to help me come off of GLP-1s. But essentially I asked AI about, glycogen, and it said it's not possible for me to have gained, to go up and down 2 pounds if it was fat. Because fat does not move that quickly. So essentially, unless you're on GLP-1s, but essentially it has to be water weight, and it has to be various systems in the body. And if you look at my scale says that I put on 1.4 pounds of muscle in the last 2 months. So I think because I'm eating again more and I'm feeling better, my muscles have gone up again. So now I'm at a higher muscle state. There are things going on in the body, and it can't be fat, is essentially what ChatGPT was saying. It is just changing too fast. Your body is just getting used to it. And I think that that's the idea, is that I'm going to be fighting, I think all of us who, if we decide to stay on it, if we decide to do maintenance on GLP-1s, or we decide to leave GLP-1s, we're going to have to fight the battle we're having. And it's going to take a good year or two before our body finally stops fighting us. It wants to go back to that weight. And so what happens is that the doctor on the other YouTube channel, I'll put a link in it when I get the notes up here, is that he was essentially saying that the body is going to start pushing ghrelin at you, which ghrelin is the hunger hormone, because it wants you to put that weight back on. Oh no, you lost 80 pounds. I'm going to do everything to get that pound back on. And it's going to take a while before your body says, okay, well, that's okay. Jill's living. She's fine. And it's going to stop fighting you so much. And that means that this is just going to be wild for the next 2 years. And I think if you can survive, the next 2 years, as you come either off or in maintenance mode, eventually you'll be like, okay, the body's good with it. So glycogen was a word I had to look up because I didn't really know exactly what it was. There's liver glycogen. That's what keeps your blood sugar steady. So if you need it, the liver can release glucose into the system. And then there's muscle glycogen, and that's used for movement, working out, and it's only used by the muscle at all. So it's basically short-term energy that hasn't been stored yet. It is just readily available for you to do it. And so GLP-1s won't burn glycogen. What it does is it makes it available to you so that you can burn it when you're just doing a daily life. So that means that your sugar levels rise more gently. That's why it's such a great diabetes drug. And it needs to be, it pulls from it more aggressively, I guess, to say it that way. So, getting my training. Thank you. Appreciate you being out there and watching this, by the way. And so essentially it helps us use the glycogen that we have before when it was storing it as fat all the time. So when we have glycogen and we have something that's dealing with the glycogen, then we don't have to worry about it. It makes us feel, using it all the time. When we start coming off of GLP-1s and maybe it's not using glycogen as effectively as it once was, that's when all of a sudden you could get sugar spikes, you could get sugar lows. Sugar lows are what I'm having right now. And maybe I'll do an episode on that someday too. But essentially, I'm just fighting that by undoing all the things that I did to lower my blood sugar when I was diabetic. I still am living like that. I realized, Jill, you're still living like you did when you had too high of blood sugar, and now you have too low blood sugar. And so I'm changing up the way I eat. I'm making sure I have carbs with every meal, and that's been helping a great deal. All right. So anyway, fight the fight you're fighting. So that's the fight I'm fighting, is that my glycogen is all over the place right now. It doesn't know what to do. I'm reducing in drugs, and that is giving me morning low energy and sugar lows. And that also means that I have to change up the way I'm eating, but also fight that I don't, how do I want to say it, go overboard. You don't want to go overboard and then have so much sugar floating around in your body, you're gaining weight again. So you don't want to go back to the way you were, but you do have to fight that battle. That's the battle I'm fighting. You may be fighting a different kind of battle. Like I said, that, identified, because I was looking, like, what is going wrong that my weight is just fluctuating all up and down like that. So anyway, think about, like, if you're fighting food noise and the food noise starts coming back, because at some point, some people feel like the food noise does come back. How are you going to combat that? What else can you do? Can you give yourself another task? Is there a food that you can eat that's not too terrible for you, that gets rid of the food noise? That's going to be a different kind of battle, because that's like a brain battle. And I'm going to have to fight that with impulsive eating. So right now on 10.0 milligrams, I'm not having impulsive problems right now. That's it. And now I'm also more clear when it happens to me. I recognize it when it happens. Like I said the other day, I forgot what it is I saw. It was on Amazon. I mentioned before that Amazon had a Diet Coke sale, and I went, "Oh, I should get some." And I'm like, "Nope." See, there it is. There it is. There's your impulsiveness. No, we're not going to go back there. Even when I go to the grocery store, I saw something today I really wanted, and I said, no, maybe sometime you can have one of these, or something like that. I forgot what it was, but not right now, and not not for a while, until I get a little bit more, like, I feel like I'm on training wheels right now, and I need to come off the training wheels. But I thought too, I would give you some practical steps, I guess, that you can do if you're trying to stabilize as well. But I think the very first step is identifying what kind of war are you fighting right now. It's a different kind of battle than I think we've been used to in the diet world. And I think we're going to have to go with it. If you're having a food noise battle, how are you going to fight that food noise battle? If you're having an impulse control problem, what are we doing there? Or in this case, if you can't exercise, you can't bring yourself to exercise, how are you going to fight that? Fight and just, take small steps and fight them each way you go. So, first of all, I think the idea is that, allow yourself, I guess, some treats. The idea that food is celebration. It's part of our culture. It's part of us being a social animal with our people. But, pick and choose what it is you're going to eat. Decide maybe even ahead of time what it is you're going to have or what you're going to splurge on. So sometimes my friends want to go out to eat. I say, you know what, French fries, I love French fries, but they're mundane. I would rather, this restaurant we're going to, they make a fantastic, something or other pie. I'm going to have a piece of that pie, but I'm not going to have the French fries. You can pick and choose ahead of time or, and decide what to do. The idea too is that you don't want to create an obsession for yourself. And so if there is something that is just driving you mad, the food noise is just getting to you, is there a way that you can have it in a small bit? So I noticed that for myself when I had food cravings. Like I said, I don't really have food noise in that same way. I got those Rolo candies, right? I think they're 15 calories or 50 calories a piece. But if I feel like having a piece of chocolate, I have one of those. And it's a way of like tamping down that craving I have for 50 calories. And then I feel like I had something and it wasn't terrible. The other thing, too, is that someone made an interesting point when it comes to treat food just in general. It said something like, we only really taste the first few bites of a thing. You'll notice that if, like, you got ice cream, you taste the first few bites of the ice cream, and then you're just eating it, and you're not even paying attention to it anymore. And so the idea is figuring out how we can stop when your interest fades. Not when the plate is clean or not when the cone of ice cream is done, but, really pay attention. Am I enjoying this, the way I was? Can I just have a few bites of something and then just stop? The other part of it, too, is that if you blew it yesterday or if you went out and had a big meal with your friends, not even blowing it, but you had a good time, is it the next day, go back to normal. Don't freak out. Don't compensate. Don't say I was good or bad, but instead just go back to your normal eating the next day. You're not going to lose this battle by eating a meal that's terrible for you. I think, too, that you have to realize that when normal people eat, they don't manage their treats. All of us who have been in the dieting world, we might think of that. Like, I'm going to get this cake and then I'll eat this cake, for the next 4 days. And then I will, this is plotting and planning. And I think what people do is when they're normal eaters is they just kind of enjoy what it is, but they don't sit there and plot all the time. And so if you can get into a normal relationship with food where you have a treat, and like I said, the next day you go back, that kind of, way of looking at it. I think that if you are looking at trying to get back on the food eating bandwagon, like I said, I'm doing something where I'm introducing food back to myself very slowly. And I have rules around them, essentially. And I know normal people don't eat with rules, but essentially saying that if I have noodles, I am just going to have a little tiny bit of noodles, and it's going to be part of a regular meal. I used to eat popcorn as an entire meal. I don't do that anymore. So I've been very careful that I don't, first of all, allow anything into my house that I know I will lose control with. If I feel like I got a bag of Doritos and I would just eat the bag of Doritos, I don't think I would anymore. But instead, I would maybe get pretzels or get something I love less. It sounds an interesting tactic to buy a snack food you don't enjoy that much, but it allows you to have a snack without you worrying about it too much. And I think that starting slowly, reintroducing food slowly, will help you in doing that. So right now, I'm only allowed to buy myself a new thing, one new thing a week. And I haven't even done that, So, but I mean, the idea is that I'm not going to reintroduce food that kind of made me not feel great quickly. I'm going to take it one small step at a time. And if I find something is too addictive for me, I just won't do it. The other thing is that we need to get in touch with our hunger systems. I think that part of the problem is your body will lie to you. It will tell you you're hungry when you're not hungry. And I learned that on GLP-1s, and maybe all of you have too. I have learned on GLP-1s what a size lunch is that doesn't, that's enough. That I feel good when I'm done. My blood sugars return to normal. And all of a sudden I was like, man, I was eating, like, let's imagine, we have these kind of sort of wholesome pizzas. I used to, for dinner, put away one of these pizzas. And I think it came to about 780 calories, okay? I learned in this whole process that I can eat a quarter of it or a third of it and be full and feel fine. And I'm like, okay, my brain was telling me I should eat more. That was a lie, right? I did not knew more. So I think the GLP-1 experience has taught me exactly how much I need to eat to be full. So you eat to be full, and then you eat no more of that. The other part of it too is try when you're hungry, try to decide what kind of hunger you're having. Is it, like, oh yeah, it's a gentle kind of hunger. Yeah, I'm getting hungry. Or is it emotional hunger? Or is it a food craving? And respond accordingly. If you can sit there and listen to your body and try to figure out exactly what's causing you to want something, you can deal with it. If it's just a craving, you can go find something else to do and keep your mind away from it. Usually, if you kind of get away from it for like 15 minutes, you won't think about it again. Have you ever done that in the store? Like you've gone shopping for something, you're like, oh my gosh, I want this lip gloss. I really love this, and then you somehow forgot to put it in the cart and then you completely forgot about it and you never ever bought it. We get into that kind of emotional state with it. And if we can just give it a little bit of time, usually we'll go on and do it. But getting in touch with what is actual real hunger, or exactly maybe mental hunger instead. Like I said, for me, I started noticing when I'm on GLP-1s how much I used to eat and how much I eat now, and saying, okay, you know what? It turned out that this was enough. I did not have to have all the things I used to have with this meal. I could have just had that. So I think trying to look at it, you want to also get away from... they call it naming it. Naming it, not shaming it. And so the idea is that if you got, let's say you had this impulse. Oh my gosh, I want to eat a cake. Don't call it hungry. You're not hungry. It's impulsive, right? So call it impulsive. So the idea is give whatever you're feeling the proper name. And when it gets there, you can't say, oh, banned, it's banned. I'm not eating this food anymore. Not a food ban, because as soon as you have a food ban, you're just going to want to crave it. Instead, I'm just choosing not to do it right now. Put it in its proper place. Like I said, I got away from that by going grocery shopping and saying, I can't buy a bag of Doritos ahead of time. But if any given night I want to eat a bag of Doritos, I can go out and buy a bag of Doritos. Oh, okay. So I'm not banned from it. And that way it took away its power to have on me. So give it the appropriate name. And then, try to figure out what sort of things triggered whatever it is you're feeling. If you say, I deserve this, that's a good sign that you probably shouldn't eat whatever it is you're eating. I deserve this. Food isn't something that you deserve or you don't deserve. It can give us joy, but in the end, we don't deserve, to have any particular kind of food. And like I said, if you can just create a pause, then the pause will give you some space so that you can avoid whatever it is you're trying to do. Set a 5-minute timer, and then just say, when this timer goes off, I'll think about it again. And chances are you probably won't even care about it. So sometimes it softens it. And sometimes you can also, like I said, plan ahead of time. Decide what you're going to eat before that meal. Decide what you're going to eat before you go out to eat at a restaurant. And when you decide something like that, that will help you make better decisions, because we're a little bit more rational when we're not in that heated moment. One of the things, like I said, I'm sort of struggling with is that I'm struggling with exercise. And so I am trying to figure out how can I get myself to exercise a little bit more. And one of the things that I started doing is that I started even just saying, well, Jill, just for, can you just do one Tabata, right? 8-minute exercise, or maybe 4-minute exercise. Could you just do Tabatas for 4 minutes, but make the time frame so small that you won't possibly say no to yourself. Like I said, it's really hard right now because it's winter out. I'm sitting underneath a blankie, and then you get warm in there. But can you just talk yourself into just saying, I'm going to do just a few minutes of exercise? And usually once you get yourself out of the chair, you're good. The other thing is getting out external accountability. Now, having a trainer is external accountability, but I was telling this to my friend Allison that I was having troubles getting out of the chair, and now sporadically throughout the day, she's yelling at me and saying, well, she's not yelling. She's like, get out of the chair, go do something. And then she made me promise her that today I would do her favorite video on Apple Fitness Plus. She loves this particular one. She says, promise me that on Sunday you'll do it. And I said, okay, I'll do that. And so, she's kind of holding me accountable in this so that I get to do a little bit more exercise. The other thing about exercise is, can you make it fun for yourself? I have a TV in there, and I also have an Oculus. We won't get into that again, but essentially I sort of make exercise kind of be a game for myself. So it's a little bit more fun for me to exercise than it has been in the past. But can you make it fun? Can it be something that you like doing? Now, I decided this last week I'm going to start running again. And I ran, and it's so funny. You don't realize I lost the ability to run. And then when I was working with my trainer, she said, well, do you ever run? And I said, gosh, not in a really long time. And it turned out I couldn't run more than 3 seconds without being out of breath entirely. So we started slowly, and I would run for 3 seconds because that was all I could run. And then I would walk for a minute, and then I would run for 3 seconds again. And it was really incredible how I just didn't have the ability to run anymore. So essentially, making it fun, having something that's a goal, working your way up small, and then having a goal in mind. I mean, I started running because I thought it would make me a better hiker. And then I got outside once I stopped being so humiliated to run outside in front of other human beings. I learned I didn't love sidewalk running, and I started getting into trail running, and I was running through the woods, and I loved it. And it was like hiking, but running. And, some people like biking because it's low impact, and, you can go farther and try to find something that really excites you. It's a little harder in winter, I think, than it is in summertime, but there are fun things out there. So I'm working on small steps to exercise because, like I said, right now, my biggest competitor right now for my health or the thing that's defeating me is, one, my body is trying to trick me into eating more, and I'm not going to fall for it. And the second thing is, getting myself to exercise, which is hard in wintertime. If you have a challenge that you're fighting about, or, there's something that you're just struggling with, go ahead and put it in the chat channel, or go ahead and email me at jill@startwithsmallsteps.com. I'd love to know what kind of challenges you're having. I'd be happy to do an episode on that too. I'm thinking, like I said, I'm going to do an episode coming up maybe next week about how I use AI. So I've been using AI and ChatGPT quite a bit ever since it came out for various other things. I'm not much of a writer, so I have it write my show notes because I'm a talker, not a writer. But it's all my content. All my content is always my own. But then I started asking it questions like, how can I get better into exercising when I don't like it? I started a whole food program where I type in what I eat. And so when I do this episode, I think it's going to be next week, I will show you actually what I type in and what kind of response I get back. But it's been helping me sort of adjust very slowly to getting off of GLP-1s, because it knows now that I'm trying to leave GLP-1s. And honestly, I have to tell you, I think I had this theory that I fixed myself like a decade ago, and I was just too overweight I broke myself. I wasn't losing weight. My sugar was too high, and I wasn't losing weight no matter what I tried anymore. And now GLP-1s allow me to lose the weight. You ever, I'm going to give you a weird analogy, but like if you got yourself into debt, right? You get yourself into credit card debt, and you're paying a ton of money towards your credit cards, but it's all going to interest. And you're like, gosh, if I could just get out of debt, I would be okay now, right? And that's where I felt like with my weight. And I'm starting to think, I think I'm in control of my food right now. And I think I can leave this drug. I'm going to be the one person who tries, I guess, and see how it goes. It's going to be very slow, and it's going to be over the course of this year. But in February, I have another meeting with my doctor, and I think I'm going to move down to 7.5 and see how that goes. And if I just stay, like I said, even if it's fluxy up and down all the time, but I sort of stay in this range, I think we're on our way. But like I said, this is an experiment, and that's what I think in the end you have to do with your life is sort of experiment and figure out what works for you, where you're at with this. Some of you, most of you, I know you in the audience, we've talked about it before. People are going to stay on this drug, and that's okay too. There's no shame in that. My friend was talking to me about that too. She goes, well, aren't you going to be very disappointed if you have to stay on this drug forever? And I said, well, not really, because I was on my way to being on diabetes drugs, high blood pressure drugs, high cholesterol drugs. I was on my way to getting a knee replacement. I was on my way to taking a lot of medications in my life. And honestly, if I had to stay on this, it's not the end of the world. Would I like to get off of it? You might ask, why do you want to get off of it? And the answer is because I think it's still messing up my energy systems. Now it could be just old age. I'm 2 years older now than I was when I started this, but I used to be a much more energetic person. I used to get a ton of things done in a day outside of work. And I still find myself a little bit easily tired. So I think I want to go down. Even though I feel better than I did, I felt miserable on 12.5. Now I'm feeling pretty darn good, but I want to see if I can feel even a little bit better. So I hope you're all doing well. I'm checking the chat channel. If there's any sort of struggles you're having or anything that you're going, I appreciate you cheering me on my strength training in. And the 2 pounds. It's so weird how, you get that way, right? You start going on maintenance, and then what happens is suddenly your body starts going 2 pounds, 2 pounds off, 4 pounds, 2 pounds off, 2 pounds off. And you're like, oh no, it's happening again. And you know what? I'm not going to freak out. So appreciate you being out there. Thanks so much. I hope you have a great week. And again, if you have topics you want me to cover, I'm thinking about taking on a different tech aspect to this. I want to know what you want. I'm not a doctor, and there's a lot of really good doctors out there on YouTube, but tech is where I stand. And so I do have some great habit tracking programs and things like that. So, if there's a problem you'd like to fix or it's something that you wish I would talk about, I'm happy to do so. I really appreciate you being out there, and have a great day.